I request everyone to settle down. We are about to start with the second working session for the day. I would again like to request everyone to settle down, please. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now start with our second working session for the day. I request the moderator for the session, Dr. Huma Bakai, Rector of Millennium Institute of Technology and Entrepreneurship, to please take her seat on the stage. I'm good. Ji ma'am. I would now like to request the speakers for the session, Ambassador Nabil Munir, Special Secretary to the United Nations MOFA, Matt Cannell, UK DHC to Pakistan, Senior Colonel Retired Cheng Shizhong, Executive Advisor, Chahar Institute, China, and Dr. Steve Brayman, Professor Emeritus Rensselaer, USA, to please take their seats on the stage. Our moderator for the session, Professor Dr. Huma Bakai, is the Rector of the Millennium Institute of Technology and Entrepreneurship in Karachi. Dr. Bakai has made significant contributions as a scholar, author, and educator. She has authored over 40 national and international research articles and book chapters with over 20 years of association with electronic and print media. I now hand over the floor to the moderator for the session's proceeding. Ma'am.
Thank you, Ikra. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. A very warm welcome and good afternoon. It's always difficult to be fully focused in the post-lunch session. So I'm going to try my bit, but I would also need your cooperation on that front because I think this session is critically important. This is an international conference. The first session that we had, which was very interesting, had some critical components that were discussed. It was for view from Pakistan. This particular session brings you the global view, the international view, and how Pakistan's war on terror are viewed by our partners and our friends, and how grateful we are to them for giving Pakistan the requisite support it needed to be where it is, where we are now not understood or seen or called out as a middle of the line, part of the problem, part of the solution. What Pakistan has established for itself with profound effort and tangible evidence is that Pakistan is not only a part of the solution, but a critical part of the solution, because it perhaps is the only country that has fought and largely defeated the war on terror on its land with its own resources and continues to do so. But more importantly, what it has done is that it has demystified the entire narrative and the situation, where the propaganda from our neighbor had created a fog where our struggle was not recognized, and we usually bore the brunt of the blame. I think we've moved on from there, and what have we done to achieve that? For that, I have a very, very august panel. We have view from the United States, we have view from UK, we have view from China, and of course, from our own Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So I urge you to listen and ask critical questions because I have a strong feeling that this is going to be a very intellectually stimulating session. I myself am looking forward to it. The post-9/11 security order pushed Pakistan into an impossible paradox, so to say. It was expected to act both as a partner and a proxy. Yet we restructured doctrines, reformed institutions, and recollaborated strategy. Our armed forces, our intelligence community, and above all, our people have borne the brunt of a war that serves a global good. And Pakistan, despite all pressures, have remained on the right side of international law. And it has not always been easy. It's time for the world to move forward and beyond the obvious narrative of suspicion and recognize Pakistan's strategic maturity, operational success, and diplomatic sincerity. We have not just contained terrorism, we have challenged its ideology and rewritten the playbook on counterinsurgency. We need to be supported and also celebrated. Today's session brings together an exceptional group of thought leaders and diplomats, all of whom represent countries that have worked with Pakistan on counter-terrorism in varying capacities. Their reflections will not only inform us, but also validate the truth that Pakistan is not, once again, a part of the problem, but central and critical to the solution. The esteemed panel of diplomats, academics, and policy experts will also offer valuable insights into the international cooperation frameworks that support, challenge, and complicate this fight. There is a need to recognize that terrorism thrives in complexity. It feeds upon ideology and opportunism, and this demands our vigilance at multiple levels As we move through today's session, we will examine how multilateralism, bilateral cooperation, and regional strategies can form a unified and more effective response to this borderless, faceless threat that no one nation can fight or be blamed for. Pakistan is the fourth most impacted country by terrorism and militancy. And that is why I'm very grateful to IPRI for one, making me a small part of this discourse, two, inviting speakers that are the real stakeholders who understand the equation and can enlighten the audience today. And to begin with, I am honored to introduce Ambassador Nabil Munir, currently serving as Special Secretary, United Nations at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Pakistan. Ambassador Munir brings with him extensive diplomatic experience, having represented Pakistan at the United Nations in New York as Deputy Permanent Representative and chaired influential forums, including the G77. Ladies and gentlemen, his topic, strengthening regional cooperation through RATS, a unified front against terrorism in South and Central Asia. This input becomes critically important because we just rounded off the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and we also know that the resolution that was passed, India declined to sign on it because Pakistan's positive role was highlighted and Pahalgam was not incorporated because India could not present tangible evidence to do so. But to hear more, I invite the ambassador.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim and assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much, Dr. Bakai, for the introduction. And of course, thank you to IPRI for providing us this opportunity to talk on this critical issue, which is an issue which bedevils not only us, but our region and the world itself. I will, as Dr. Bakai said, I will focus specifically on the SCO's anti-terrorism structure, which is called the Regional Anti-Terrorism Structure, RATS. It's a kind of a strange name, but it works well. The RATS, which is the Regional Anti-Terrorism Structure of SCO, is a unique example of regional cooperation on counter-terrorism related issues that supports interstate harmony for achieving interconnected, peaceful, and a prosperous region. Significant growth of RATS members in a short span of time is a testament to its increasing relevance as well as importance. Since joining the SCO in 2017, Pakistan has actively contributed to diverse RATS activities related to terrorism, including political, legal, technical cooperation, capacity building, counter-terror financing, information sharing, communication systems, and revamping of operational capabilities of member states for enhancing synergies in our collective responses to the interrelated evils of terrorism, extremism, and separatism. As a frontline state in combating terrorism, Pakistan has made, as you all know, unparalleled sacrifices in blood and treasure, suffering more than 90,000 casualties since 2001. We understand all too well that the global menace of terrorism cannot be addressed by any country alone. It requires collective cooperation and efforts. Pakistan has contributed to all activities under the RATS forum in that very atmosphere, including hosting of joint border operations and anti-terrorism exercises under its banner. Amongst them, we look forward to hosting the next joint border operations this year. We have also shared our best practices with RATS, including the Pagham-e-Pakistan initiative to counter extremism through a unified national narrative promoting peace, tolerance, and social cohesion. Under this initiative, a unanimous fatwa was issued by religious scholars prohibiting the use of force to implement Islamic laws and emphasizing the state's exclusive authority to define and conduct jihad. The fatwa also declared terrorism and suicide bombing as forbidden in Islam and called for protecting the lives and property of non-Muslims in the country. Pakistan has also established the Sabaun De-Radicalization Center, a unique program focused on rehabilitating juvenile TTP militants by helping them shed extremist ideologies and integrate them into society through psychological, religious, and vocational training. We appreciate the technical professionalism of RATS, which has effectively circumvented attempts at politicization by debunking baseless allegations regarding defunct entities actively peddled by a member state to build a false narrative for domestic gains despite adversely impacting the organization itself. And Dr. Bakai just mentioned one small part of that. We must remain vigilant at deterring attempts to exploit the bogey of terrorism by justifying state terrorism in occupied territories and conflating the legitimate right of self-determination of people living under occupation with terrorism. RATS, we firmly believe, is an organization which has a unique interface between agencies, organizations, and observers for sharing insights, best practices, and bringing together heads of security services. We believe that terrorism can be defeated only through cultivating mutual trust and realizing that entities like TTP, BLA, ISKP, ETIM, amongst others, pose a collective threat to the region. Our national CT efforts have led us to conclude that ensuring a balance between kinetic and non-kinetic means against terrorism at national, regional, and international level is the only way forward. And RATS offers an optimal forum to reconcile member states' divergent interests and enhance complementarities and convergences. Pakistan is going to assume the chairpersonship of SCO Council of Regional Anti-Terrorism Structure, that is SCO RATS, for the term 2025-26 in a couple of months. As a founding member of the SCO, Pakistan remains firmly committed to the organization's core objective of fostering regional peace and security through collective efforts. We have a range of activities planned under the period of our chairmanship. We look forward to further consolidating SCO's role as a regional multilateral platform against terrorism, extremism, and separatism in all their forms and manifestations. Thank you.
Thank you so much for short and comprehensive and keeping time. I'm grateful to that. One of the questions that I will leave with the panel, which may be answered later, is that be it SCO, be it BRICS, is India emerging as the odd one out, with not completely aligned with the thrust of these organizations? It's becoming more obvious in SCO, but is also a factor in BRICS. So maybe, Ambassador, when we come to you for the Q&A session, you could elaborate on that. I have the honor and pleasure of introducing Mr. Met Kennel, Charge d'Affaires. He served as the British Deputy High Commissioner to Pakistan since November 2024. He's a career diplomat with UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. He previously held the same role in Bangladesh, where he also served as a development director. He knows the region, ladies and gentlemen. Internationally, he has represented the UK at the UN in New York, served in Afghanistan also, and acted as the Foreign Secretary's Special Representative for Sudan and South Sudan. Over half his career has been spent overseas. One, welcome to Pakistan. Two, his topic is mitigating transnational terrorism, Pakistan's UK collective approach. The floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. And I know we've got the graveyard shift, as it's referred to this afternoon, after lunch, but I know this afternoon's discussion will be stimulating. I wanted to talk a bit about UK-Pakistan cooperation, but also focus a bit on what the UK is worried about in the counter-terrorism field. Before I get onto that important subject, I just wanted to express my severe condolences to all those who are affected by terrorism. This is a global phenomenon around the world, and it touches the lives of ordinary people in places across the globe, and particularly here in Pakistan. And in my short time here, we've seen some tragic attacks that affect the people of Pakistan, and I offer my condolences. We've also heard the sacrifices that the Pakistan government has made in their security forces in combating terrorism. The UK will always condemn terrorism. It stands up strongly against terrorism in all its forms and works with partners across the world to promote and combat terrorism. A shameless plug, if I may. In the last couple of weeks, the UK has published a range of new strategies. 2 weeks ago, we published a new strategic defence and security review, and last week, a national security strategy. These set out headline commitments, such as our commitment of 5% of GDP on security, our NATO commitment, but also sets out how foreign policy and international policy is interconnected with domestic policy. What happens overseas affects our colleagues at home, and that internet connectivity, the complexity of the world that we now see before us, the new alliances that are being forged, means that we need to think again about our approach to security. And that requires renewed investments from the UK and really combining our diplomatic, development and defence assets into one collective approach. The National Security Strategy sets out how we will do that, combating cyber threats, hybrid threats, hostile state actors, and of course our work on counter-terrorism. At the heart of all of that work is partnership. The UK is not an actor among its own. It has to partner across the globe, and that partnership is obviously strong here in Pakistan. We've already heard speakers talk about the transnational threat that terrorism faces. I won't dwell on that too much. Globalization and global connectivity has given us huge benefits, huge opportunities for trade, cultural exchange, but there are also challenges of global connection, particularly when propaganda can be connected to lone actors that can promote ideologies. And that tension around how do we act collectively across transnational boundaries is something that I'll refer throughout my remarks. For the UK's perspective, there are 3 theatres of operation that particularly concern us at the moment, concerning counter-terrorism: Daesh in Syria and Iraq, Al-Shabaab in East Africa, and of course Al-Qaeda and ISKP in Afghanistan. These threats pose challenges to many of us around the world, but the UK is particularly concerned about it. And here in Pakistan, of course, you have the BLA and TTP, which underlines how the UK and Pakistan need to work together to combat these shared threats. I wanted to say a bit about our assessment of where we are with ISKP. So since the fall of Kabul in 2022, all of us, I think, were worried about ISKP and Al-Qaeda's re-emergence. We were worried about retaking territory. Since 2022, I think Taliban pressure has addressed some of that, but what we've seen is a dispersal rather than eradication of ISKP. They have obviously regrouped and are now promoting attacks in neighbours in Afghanistan and across the border as well. Al-Qaeda is probably taking a more patient approach and preserving its relationship probably with the Taliban over conducting attacks. As I said, ISKP concerns us from a range of attacks that we're seeing, from Russia to Iran to failed attempts in Europe, combated through intelligence sharing and cooperation. So all of this underlines the importance of remaining vigilant. We need to maintain our pressure on ISKP in particular. Individuals are inspired by their narrative. This propaganda war is a collective war that we need to combat together. And our concern is these lone actors can get inspired by different narratives that affect us all. So how's the UK tackling this? I think when we talk about how do we tackle this threat, we think about 5 levels. I wasn't here this morning, and I would have really loved to hear the session on financing. ISKP financing, we know little about it, if we're honest. So cryptocurrencies and digital technologies make that landscape a bit more complex to understand, as well as hawalas. So we think we need to develop a new toolkit. The toolkits that we use are really around training, building our own capacity, supporting FATF on evaluations of ISKP financing, and also, of course, information sharing between us as partners. Secondly, transit and travel routes. Sadly, terrorism exploits vulnerabilities in our international global system. We need to think about how we mitigate vulnerabilities, particularly in a world where we see more organized immigration crime and migration flows. So our commitment is implementing UNSCR resolutions and sharing data with our partners, as well as sharing passenger data. We've also done a lot of work over the years around aviation security and improving aviation security to address vulnerabilities. These are the practical tools we think we need to deploy more widely. I've talked a number of times about propaganda, and propaganda volume is increasing exponentially. There's also ISKP is using new languages, translating into new languages, and of course artificial intelligence will have an impact on the accessibility of promoting grievances and propaganda throughout the world. We have what's called the counter-Daesh Comm Cell, and this really looks at strategic communications to target the most vulnerable communities and promote narratives that avert those communities being affected by Daesh and ISKP propaganda. Fourthly, and lastly, we need to think about coordination. So our coordination efforts are strong. We need to understand how Taliban pressure is continuing to affect ISKP and sharing information to continue to disrupt future activity. So sharing insights with our partners and our partnerships is central. But we also have a new what's called ISKP diplomatic community. So this is a group of some 20 states that come together to share data, to bring together operational and policy colleagues to really bind us together both diplomatically and operationally. I wanted to say a bit about our UK-Pakistan partnership as well. I've been lucky enough, actually this year is my 20th year of serving overseas, to be posted in some 5 countries. All of those countries have taught me a huge amount. But our partnership here in Pakistan is a bit different. It's different because of the scale and the scope. It's different because of our 1.6 million diaspora that live in the UK. Our trade relationship is now 4.4 billion. We have a huge partnership on climate change and development. We have work ongoing around a whole range of issues from serious organized crime. But our security interest and our migration interest and our counter-terrorism interests here endure. So what's the UK and Pakistan working on? Again, 4 themes, I would say, to help. So capacity, sharing knowledge and building our capacity. We're lucky to have a counter-terrorism policing team here that really works together with law enforcement to think about building capacity, looking at investigations, and practical tools to improve forensic data collection. Secondly, we have a strong operational cooperation between our 2 governments here to disrupt and identify transnational frameworks in all their forms. Thirdly, financial. We've done a lot of work around financial cooperation to combat disrupting financing, so work with the counter-terrorism financing framework and anti-money legislation. So we've contributed to Pakistan's work in this area. And then lastly, dialogue. I'm a diplomat, so I'm a big fan of dialogue. But we have our counter-terrorism dialogue in London earlier this year between us and Pakistan, and we hope to return here in Islamabad soon. Dialogue is essential. It binds us together. It makes our systems connect through the law enforcement to diplomacy. So in summary, the transnational threats we face are significant. The connectivity we have across the world, the digital media, the ability for ISKP to promote false narratives and propaganda is a concern to us all. But that emphasizes the importance of us working in partnership. The UK and Pakistan have a strong partnership on counter-terrorism efforts, and we think we can strengthen that further in the years ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Met, again for keeping time. And the question that I'd like to leave with you is, you've pointed out towards the multi-pronged strategy that UK also applies to countering terrorism, but my question to you would be that, is there still a mismatch between the global south and global north on the understanding of how terrorism should be tackled or is being tackled, or are we closing the gap? The session that we had on FATF this morning was very clearly indicative of the progress Pakistan has made and how committed it continues to be on it. So I'll just leave that question with you. And now a very, very important presentation, all very important of course. It is on Pakistan-China cooperation against terrorism. The reason this particular presentation is important is because Chinese on our land have been victims and targets of terrorism. And perhaps the only country that has not pointed fingers at us, but has helped us counter it. So, and we've done everything we could to ease their tensions. So the floor is yours. Chang Ji-hong, he's the Executive Advisor of the Southwest Office and Chief Researcher and South Asia Affairs Chahar Institute. And he's also, by the way, served in the region. He served in Nepal, Bangladesh, India, and extensively in Pakistan.
My PPT. Oh, yeah. President, generals, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, 下午好. Good afternoon. Salam alaikum. Actually, these years I've been invited for so many times, but I did not come because of the security situation. And this time, it does not mean that now the situation is better, but I decided to come. And it's mainly because last year, December, right, we received a delegation from Islamabad Policy Research Institute. And Chinese Chahar Institute, your institute, we signed a document for strategic cooperation. And General Raza, General Rashid, and Nawaz, and others, Lady Gorjan, who is not here, because I miss you after this visit. So because I miss you, so I decided to come to see you again. And this is also, you know, our strategic cooperation should not be only the visit, so there should be continuation of the strategic cooperation. So this is a kind of continuation. So I reported to the president of Chahar Institute, and he fully supported, and he asked me to bring his best regards to all of you. Thank you very much. Here, I would like to, there are 3 points first I would like to put forward. The first point is that I worked in Pakistan, that is 23 years ago. At that time, Pakistan was very safe. We traveled around quite often so freely without any need of armed protection. After the September 11th attack, in 2001, the United States launched the Afghanistan war. So at that time, after American Afghanistan war started, there was a seminar, I think in one of the institutes, and I attended. In that seminar, I pointed out that the US invasion of Afghanistan was an act of terrorism. So at that time, I pointed out that the US state terrorism would lead to the spread of terrorism in South Asia and even globally. So this is the point I pointed out in 2001. The second point is that Pakistan is the biggest victim of global terrorism. Pakistan has made enormous sacrifice, including so many soldiers, policemen sacrificed their lives, and also has made great contributions to combating terrorism and safeguarding regional and world peace. The third point is that now, as I see, the military strikes by Israel and the United States against the targets within Iran are also acts of state terrorism, which will exacerbate the further spread of terrorism in the region, even globally. So the 3 points I would like to point out. I've prepared, I think, 5 parts. Now I come to the third part. Path and specific suggestions for deepening counter-terrorism cooperation between China and Pakistan. The first point is that to strengthen intelligence sharing and joint operations, a more efficient and comprehensive intelligence sharing mechanism should be established. The two sides should establish a dedicated, I'll call it counter-terrorism intelligence joint analysis center to integrate data resources from military, police, security, and other departments, and use artificial intelligence algorithm to deeply research and analyze terrorism-related information such as social media monitoring and fund flow tracking, improving the efficiency and accuracy of intelligence collection and analysis. For example, by utilizing advanced big data analysis techniques, massive amounts of social media information can be filtered to identify recruitment information and activity planning clues of terrorist organizations. At the same time, strengthen joint action efforts, increase the frequency and scale of cross-border counterterrorism exercises, simulate various complex terrorist attack scenarios, and develop detailed joint action plans. In actual counterterrorism operations, both sides may closely operate to achieve real-time intelligence sharing and centralized actions, forming a comprehensive strike situation against terrorist organizations. The second is to enhance cooperation in counterterrorism capacity building. China can provide more advanced anti-terrorism equipment and technology to Pakistan, such as reconnaissance satellites, drones, and other reconnaissance means to enhance Pakistan's reconnaissance and monitoring capabilities against terrorist organizations and achieve early warning of terrorist activities. In terms of personnel training, China can invite Pakistani counterterrorism personnel to participate in professional training in China and share China's experience in counterterrorism tactics, operational command, intelligence analysis, and other aspects. China can also dispatch training and guidance, enhancing the professional competence and practical capabilities of Pakistani counterterrorism personnel. The third is to promote, especially China should help the Pakistani side to enhance the capability of crime investigation. As I see, because in China, if there are 100 cases of thieves, Chinese capability is that within 24 hours, 95% we can succeed. So if the rate of success is high, then there will be less cases. So terrorist activity is the same. If we can have investigation successfully crack down, then if the rate is high, there will be less terrorist activities, as I see. So this crime investigation capability is very important to curtail further terrorist activities. The third point is to promote economic development and social stability. The construction of a China-Pakistan economic corridor is of great significance in promoting Pakistan's economic development and eliminating the breeding ground for terrorism. In the process of project promotion, priority should be given to strengthen the infrastructure construction of transportation, communication, and other counter-terrorism key areas, such as Balochistan and KP province. Improving local livelihoods, creating conditions for economic development, and reducing the possibility of people being recruited by terrorist groups due to poverty and other factors. At the same time, China can assist Pakistan in carrying out social development projects, promoting ethnic integration and enhancing the sense of identity of ethnic minorities to the country. For example, project operation can be carried out in the fields of education, healthcare, etc., to improve the education level and the medical security capabilities of ethnic minority areas, enhance the quality of life of the local residents, and eliminate the social factors that breed terrorism from the root. These are the points, part of my preparation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shang. I know you had a 40-minute presentation, and you compressed it in the interest of time. I'm grateful for that. But you also touched upon a very critical point, and that is states sponsoring terrorism and the new normal we saw in the last 6 months. You mentioned 2 countries. With your permission, I'm going to add India to it, because India also attacked Pakistan unilaterally. And what kind of world are we looking at if this becomes the new normal? Both Iran and Pakistan did all they could in their defense, and Pakistan emerged as a victorious nation. But what is it going to do to the global conflict landscape? And with this, I have the honor and privilege of inviting an academician to the discourse. Very important for me being an academician myself, Professor Emeritus Dr. Steve Ryman from USA. He served in various prestigious universities in the USA, but has also been associated with the State Department and US military. The floor is yours, Professor.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for IPRI for putting this on. Very important opportunity for dialogue. Hope that I can stimulate some discussion before we're done here. I recall with some clarity where I was at about 9:15 a.m. on September 11th, 2001, listening to a radio show, working, and the hostess of the radio show said, "Oh, we just got a report that an aircraft crashed into one of the World Trade Center towers." And I thought, oh, well, you know, not good, but that's happened before. Occasionally, these skyscrapers meet with aircraft. Well, within, 10 minutes or whatever, there was yet another strike in the tower of the World Trade Center, and I immediately knew, okay, this was something else, and was immediately terrified, because I knew how my country would respond. It would lose its head. It would act irrationally and dangerously, and that's precisely what happened. Even the term war on terror is a misnomer. Terror is a tactic. How do you wage a war on a tactic? Terrorist groups are non-state organizations. How do you declare war on a non-state organization? You don't. The very framework of the last 20 years or so has been confused and thus sent, and let me talk mostly about the role of the United States here, mostly sent my country down the wrong path, led to extraordinary and unprecedented self-destructive actions, led to shameful violations of international law and human rights. I am ashamed. Dragged my flag through the mud. All right. I was of the opinion, there was a nice slide earlier today with the various approaches to the so-called war on terror. I was of the opinion that these are criminal activities. The law was broken, people were murdered, thus there needs to be a law enforcement mobilization. There needs to be a response. Maybe it will require some paramilitary assistance because of the places these police forces would need to go. But it certainly did not require the several trillion dollars and several thousand lives that the United States invested in the war on terror for the last couple of decades. The war, and now let me try to pivot here a bit to the Pakistani role in the U.S.-Pakistani relations across this generation. The war on terror for the United States, and I'd argue too, and I look forward to maybe somebody disagreeing with me later, was and certainly is not existential for either country. There's no threat of the collapse of the U.S. as a consequence of terrorist attacks. There's zero chance that Pakistan will fall apart because of terrorist activities in KTP or Balochistan. It's not going to happen. Yes, it's a slow bleeding. Yes, it gets in the way of cooperation with Chinese when it comes to CPEC. Yes, it's a tragedy for the victims. Vast majority of them innocent civilians and brave soldiers and police officers, but again, not existential. Right? I think we lost understanding of the stakes. Earlier today, colleagues mentioned a couple of things that they thought would be necessary moving forward. I don't think either specifically mentioned the United States, but I think the U.S. was clearly included in their thinking. And so Mr. Bhutto Zardari said that he hoped his partners would have, in the fight against terrorism, he hoped his partners would have the courage of consistency. A lovely thought, but consistent American policy? Is there such a thing? Crazy pendulum swings every 4 or 8 years? The complete undoing of the legacy of the previous president? How does Pakistan deal with this kind of swirl and confusion? And the quick answer is very difficult to do so. A little later this morning, General Erson said that cooperation with, he might have specifically mentioned the United States, needed a recalibration. And I think that's right. And that would give us the opportunity to dial down some of the hyperbola, dial down some of the rhetoric, attempt to the extent possible to forget some of the painful remarks of various American leaders across the last 20 years. I've got well, I won't even bother. I have a Trump tweet here from 2018 that was distinctly unkind to Pakistan. And speaking of that guy, I guess the good news from your perspective is that he's yet to order a drone strike onto Pakistani territory. All right, so there is, some kind of improvement over his immediate predecessors. We've seen the nice decline in drone strikes. It'll be interesting to see now that Pakistan itself is using drones in its own struggle against the TTP, whether there'll be similar kind of concerns over due process and of people with their fingers on joysticks acting as judge, jury, and executioner. All right. Well, let me stop there. Hopefully been sufficiently provocative to generate some questions and discussions, and look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Terror is a tactic. I couldn't agree more. But your refreshing honesty was a breath of fresh air. I'd like to think you are our ambassador in the US. Some of us would not come out and speak so straightforwardly about what US-Pakistan. Having said this, I don't think I'm going to leave a question with you. You've been provocative enough, you'll get enough from the floor, but I'd request other panelists to come on the questions that I'd left with them. And Ambassador, we'll start with you, and it was perhaps on the role of India and SCO and BRICS. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Very interesting question. I was having a discussion about a similar subject yesterday with one of the diplomats here. And I just, a Western diplomat, and I said, he posed a similar question, and I said, welcome to our world. We've been living in this world for the last 80 years. That is exactly how India behaves. It's just that they had created a smoke screen for the rest of the world, which is now breaking down. If you see what they did in Canada and in the US by killing people, then what they did after Pahalgam with our repeated offers of inquiry, and then they went on and bombed. And then even after that, and it continues. So I think they are, I don't know, maybe they've become hostages to their own propaganda. They don't really see the reality. And the world is actually seeing that reality now. Whether it's in SCO, and you mentioned one in BRICS as well. There were issues apparently yesterday in the meeting in DC. And the statement that has just come out as a result of that BRICS meeting is exactly what the UN Security Council statement was. Not a word more, not a word less. And that's a statement that was agreed by Pakistan. So the world is listening to what we are saying, and should I say we are happy? Thank you.
Mr. Vint, my question to you was, and especially after what the ambassador has said, is the narrative gap between the global south and the global north on terrorism closing? Are we getting on the same page, or it continues to exist?
Thanks very much. Is that microphone on? Can people? Perfect. Well, I think it's fair to say that the impact on terrorism is a global issue. The impact has, of course, affected countries in the south significantly. Yeah. So, and again, as I said at the start of my remarks, that the response from Pakistan and the response from the security services, they've borne a heavy cost. But I'd actually say we have a shared endeavor to combat this global threat, and that requires a multilateral response. We know that terrorism has no boundaries. The digital connections that we have, the people-to-people connections, means that we have to look at transnational threats and use the cooperation frameworks we have. Again, our counter-Daesh cell that we have, the diplomatic group, brings together North and South. And I think in some ways I sort of challenge a little bit, the more we sort of create the divisions, that this is a West problem or a South problem, terrorists thrive on that. So actually creating a narrative that we can all rally behind, and that's what part of our cooperation is about, creating engagement in places like Pakistan or with other countries in the global South to create a shared common interest, a shared recognition, and actually learning from one another. So I would not pit North against South. This is a shared endeavor for us.
Great.
Thank you.
Good to hear that. And to you, my question was, is the international global conflict landscape becoming more dangerous with what we saw in the last 3 months?
I think it is not very optimistic. Let's see the relations mainly between China and America. And China wishes that we have a win-win situation. We have a great potential for going together, and but American policies sometimes they change. Now I think not too bad. So there's still possibility of going together in the years to come, but there will be problems. And so far as the region is concerned, in South Asia, just this morning I raised the question, does Pakistan have a kind of strategy, long strategy for relations with India? Because because of Kashmir issue, and the relations are not normal. So my idea is that at least India, Pakistan should have normal relations. Normal relations. Like India is a big economy. So far as India is concerned, how to deal with India, Pakistan can also learn something from China. And China, we have a long-term strategy for relations with India. And since the 1950s, last century, we had Hindi Chini Bye Bye. Then early 1960s, we had a big problem along the border, but we didn't call it war. We called it border conflict. And then the relations became normal. So, because China, both China and India, as we see, we are two big economies. And somebody mentioned in the morning, global south, global north. As I see, India is still in the family of global south, not north. So, though they have, that try to develop strategic relations with America. But basically, the Indian policy has not been away from non-alignment. Since India became independent, up to now, more or less, the foreign policy is still non-aligned. So they try to develop good relations with America, with Japan. They have traditional friendship with Russia. They also attach importance to its relations with China. They play games among the big powers so as to benefit more. I think this is there, but they have not left the policy of non-alignment. Still independent country.
Right.
So
you call it non-alignment. We've started calling it hard hedging. The important question is Indian hard hedging working or not? Professor, I didn't leave a question for you because I thought a lot would come on the floor. So the floor is now open for question answers. I see a hand right at the back. Go ahead, gentlemen. Also, quickly introduce yourself. Keep the question small, short, no comments.
All right, ma'am. This is Anwar, a student of International Relations, Namaj University. My question goes to Ambassador Saab. Ambassador Saab, in kind of great length explains the structure of counter-terrorism structure of SCO. Sir, Pakistan's threats emanates from Afghanistan, which is not a full member of the SCO, and from India that supports militant activities across Pakistan. And as you mentioned, that Pakistan would assume the counter-terrorist threats presidency in the coming year. So how would it help Pakistan to make India accountable for their actions and to stop Afghanistan to provide sanctuaries and to the militants that perpetuate malign activities in Pakistan? Thank you.
That's a tall order. The floor is yours, Ambassador.
Thank you, and thank you for the question. Yes, I think when we talk about counter-terrorism, there are multiple ways of doing it, and you're working in parallel tracks. One way is exactly what you're saying, that you, for example, if there are threats emanating from Afghanistan, you talk to them, you talk to their friends, you talk to whoever can influence them, and you try to make sense of what you're saying and try to make sure that they listen to you. At the same time, there are international organizations that are setting norms, and SCO-RAT is one of those. It helps in capacity building, it helps in setting norms, so that when you do these kind of counterterrorism operations or counterterrorism cooperation, there is a platform that the SCO-RATs can provide. And we do that, I mean, as you said, India, of course, is a member of SCO-RATs. And when we talk to India, not directly, but through the SCO-RATs, there is more leeway that we can get. Exactly what we referred to earlier, that if India is doing something wrong, and we are in the SCO-RATs bringing that wrong to the international community, that helps our narrative. And narrative building, again, is a part of countering terrorism as well. So all of that works in parallel, and that's how one thing helps the other side move forward.
Thank you. Our friend from China had talked about normalizing relations with India. Pakistan has tried that time and again. We also coined a term. We said we want functional relations with India. But having said this, it takes two to tango. We can't do it one-sided. Right, the lady in the front.
Question is coming from Professor. My question is from you, and I second Dr. Bakai that you have been very open and very, kind of having the view like we have for America's foreign policy. I want to ask your opinion on Trump's policies of cutting finances at home, but funding Ukraine and funding Israel on the other hand. Don't you see? I mean, what's your opinion on it?
I can project. I raised 3 children. Completely backwards. We just witnessed a genocide in real time. Broke me. Still recovering. Ukraine, the most clear case of a just resistance to foreign invasion that you can come up with, at least since the Second World War. And yet what? The Trump administration cuts off aid to these heroic people? Completely backwards.
If I may add to that question, how popular is your view back home?
Which view?
All the views that you've just, your
Well,
views
it's
about
been a
Pakistan,
diverse
US.
array. It's certainly a very popular view in academia.
It is in
Right.
academia.
I think it's even a popular view in the State Department where I spent some time, but they can't say this openly and honestly, right? They can say it over a beer. And on these last points about Ukraine and Gaza, cutting off aid to Israel, attempting to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu and send him to the International Criminal Court, and increased aid for Ukraine, all are majority positions. Majority. In some cases, strongly.
We'll take more questions. There is a hand behind you. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir. My question is from Kennel, and that is when the international global order were formed, the founding members, the China, UK, and the US, they formed a very good order. That was one of them. I just want to mention the veto power countries. It is just like as, would you think that we should revisit the developers and the founders approach, that when it comes to Africa, the Vietnam and other, whenever there is a dispute arise, one of the veto member country cast a negative vote, that basically all the efforts of global stake actors were basically becomes just like nothing make any kind of influence. What do you think that when it comes to nationalism, regionalism, and globalism? I think so we should revisit, that is what my question is. Do you think the permanent veto member countries should revisit their own thought and they should make certain kind of new rules for international understanding? And next one, my question is from Xing, is that what is the approach of China when it comes to veto power in international stage? That's all. Thank you.
All right, let me tackle the first one. I refer to the Security Council and its privileges, including the veto, as a congenital defect in the design of the United Nations system. I'm for global democracy. Now, how that translates is a matter for a new set of founders to work out. Probably some mix of a kind of global federal system and also a sort of straight-ahead democracy, one person, one vote. But it would surely better reflect the concerns and desires of the contemporary world, and it would hopefully put an end to great power abuses and hegemony.
Would you like to make a comment?
As Security Council resolutions, sometimes Chinese policies, China mainly consider the interests of developing countries. So among the 5 countries, China mainly, I think, represent global South. Thank you.
That's your comment.
You said it was going to be a lively discussion. We're sort of straying a little bit off topic, but I mean, in terms of the UK's view on, I worked at the UN, as you heard from my introduction, for 5 years, and the UN is the paramount multilateral institution that brings us together. My experiences there were overwhelmingly positive. It builds understanding between nations. It allows us to discuss difficult issues from development to human rights to foreign policy. The UK has a long-standing position on UN Security Council reform. It's something that we've lobbied for and advocated for a long time. With any reform in the UN, that is a complex set of discussions between powers across the world. We've long advocated for a seat for Africa. There is various proposals out there for a UN Security Council reform. So I would encourage you to look at the statements that we've made on specifically around veto use and reform of the UN Security Council, because we've been advocating it for a long while. We, of course, that is tied into wider geopolitical discussions of how geopolitical relationships have evolved over time. Thank you very much.
Right. We have more questions. I see some hands. Sir. Yes, please. This gentleman on your left.
Okay, our question is for our guest from UK, that what can UK do to depoliticize the abuse of FATF? Because the FATF conditions of grey listing or blacklisting the countries, they are often used in a political way also. And we have seen India openly admitting that it has done that. Whereas if you look in a factual matter, even the British activities at Cayman Island or British Virgin Island or Isle of Wight could also be put Great Britain into the grey list. So how should UK use its influence that this FATF should not be abused in a political way?
From the UK's perspective, we've obviously invested in a lot of, as I said in my remarks, FATF, we worked very closely with Pakistan, particularly on terrorist financing. Our commitment to the multilateral system is very strong. I mean, the jurisdiction, you mentioned the British Virgin Islands, the jurisdiction of British Virgin Islands and overseas territories is slightly different to the UK. But with any multilateral institution, the UK has a strong voice and will continue to advocate for following the rules of that institution, and that's no different with FATF as well. Thank you.
Ambassador Ram, you have a question? Ambassador? No, okay, fine. I'm sorry I missed you. Please go ahead, Paul.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Sami Imran, doing international relations from Namal University, Islamabad, and my question is for Mr. Matt. Recently, British government proscribed Palestine Action as a terrorist organization. So what are the parameters according to British government to proscribe any entity as a terrorist? Do you really think that the terrorism is now very politicized in the British society? Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Wajahat Ali from Minhaj University. Actually, with regards to the terrorism, I want to know, are the states are going to be more pragmatic or realistic as the liberal institutions are failing and more humans are affecting? Thank you.
If it's okay, would you mind repeating it, please? Sorry.
The question was that how can Palestinian organizations be declared as terrorist? Is that the question?
I'm saying that Palestine Action recently proscribed as a terrorist organization. So my question is, what are the parameters to British government proscribe any entity as a terrorist? So my understanding is it's really politicized nowadays in British society that whenever you're going to do, just describe them as a terrorist. Thank you. Now you understand?
Okay.
Thank fine? Good. Thank you.
Can we have an approach to declaring organization as terrorist organizations? Or there should be more pragmatism?
No, it's not blanket. It's targeted. It's Palestine. Right?
Palestine.
It's not another group. It's Palestine.
Yeah, so I would say to this, I mean, the one thing I'm really proud about the UK is our independence of our legal and judiciary service. So I'm not going to get into the Palestine question on this particular issue, but there is a process to look at the activities of any group organization and determine if that meets a certain threshold around designations. And of course, that is completely separate from any political judgment. That is an independent police assessment, and that's what part of makes our independent judiciary such an important part of our legal service. So irrespective of what you've mentioned about Palestine, any organization that is prescribed would be looked at by the police and the justice system, not politicians. Thank you very much.
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. My question is to Professor. Professor, does the change in Syria, where a former ISIS leader is now the leader, so do we think that the norms which govern since 9/11 about terrorism have changed, or those ex-ISIS people have been politically, their software has changed or updated, and they have fallen in line?
Version 2.0.
Yes.
Well, it's very clear, right? There would not be ISIS were there not a U.S. invasion of Iraq. Anyone differ with that claim? So there's something for you. Extraordinary complexities with the U.S. role in Syria and the backing of the Free Syrian Army, and then picking and choosing among various al-Qaeda affiliates. I'm actually cheered. It seems to me the Trump administration, probably accidentally did the right thing just yesterday or the day before in dropping sanctions against Syria. Right? Which is exactly the huge break that Syria needs just now.
By the same analogy, then should we also make Taliban as good boys? Should we recognize them now? That a former ISIS leader is now heading Syria. So
Yes, and the Taliban's anti-ISIS. They should be allies, shouldn't they?
so who's ally? The US is ISIS's ally?
This is getting very interesting, but we are also treading dangerous waters. I'd like this discussion to happen over a nice warm cup of tea. Thank you, gentlemen. This was both intellectually stimulating and provocative enough. Thank you once again. Thank you, audience.
First of all, I would like to thank the honorable speakers and the moderator. Thank you very much to all of you as well. I would now like to invite President IPRI to present mementos to our worthy speakers and moderator. Ambassador Nabil Munir, Special Secretary to the United Nations MOFA. Senior Colonel Retired Cheng Shizhong, Executive Advisor, Charhar Institute, China. Dr. Steve Brayman, Professor Emeritus, Rensselaer, USA. Matt Cannell, UK DHC to Pakistan. And Dr. Homa Bakai, Rector of Millennium Institute of Technology and Entrepreneurship. Now I request everyone, the speakers and moderator for this session, to gather on the stage for a group photograph.
Great answers. Thank you so much.
As we come to the end of today's insightful and thought-provoking session, I would like to thank all our distinguished speakers, guests, and participants for their valuable contributions throughout the day. To formally conclude the proceedings, it is now my honor to invite President IPRI to deliver the closing remarks. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It was a very well-spent day and on a very important subject. We all have learned a lot from the respectable speakers, and I am really thankful for all of you for attending this conference. And today we have learned a lot about our own efforts against this war. We have actually highlighted many shortcomings, gray areas, many areas where we need definite improvement to be very effective in this war against terror. And we have also had a very interesting session with our international guests here about how they view this perspective of Pakistan's role in the war against terror. I am really thankful to all the worthy speakers to have traveled all the way to Islamabad and honored us today, and we had a lot of valuable ideas coming in during this conference. Thank you very much.